What's going on, YouTube, and welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte. We're continuing to pump out our videos for the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. For the first time here in 2025, looking at this year's playoffs, we are heading to the Western Conference. The Vegas Golden Knights, the Minnesota Wild. This is a new matchup. We've never seen these teams match up in the Stanley Cup playoffs ever. So there's a new one. So we're excited to go over this one, my predictions for this series. Stay tuned till the end. And in the meantime, while we're talking about this topic, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and leave your predictions down below for who you think is going to win this series. With that out of the way, you know what it's time for. Let's dive into this series. So, the Minnesota Wild, the Vegas Golden Knights. Two very different ends of the spectrum. The Vegas Golden Knights, top team in the Pacific, over 100 points again this season, 107 to be exact at the making of this video. And they have a couple of lingering injuries. We expect these to be more of guys that have just been getting battered up and bruised throughout the season, just taking some rest. So a couple of these guys, probably not too concerning. They should be back for the playoffs. Vegas should have a healthy lineup for Game 1 against Minnesota at T-Mobile Arena. So let's take a look at some of the guys that have been kind of on the scratch pad the last couple of games. Mark Stone, Pietrangelo, Hanifin, and Eichel. I don't think it's any coincidence. Like, they know where they're sitting in the standings. They kind of know their positioning. They're sitting those guys out. So, yeah, they've been resting. They're injured. I think it's more so they're just getting a break before the start of the playoffs. So I really wouldn't read too much into that, but they're taking a break. So that's really it for that. Other than that, no other long-term injuries so far going into the playoffs, which is great. Jack Eichel, 93 points. He leads the team in points this season. He's a plus 30 as well, which is really solid. Another pretty pivotal player, top 5 plus minus in the league. Braden McNabb, a plus 40. Zach Whitecloud, a plus 37. You know those two are a pair together. They've been doing quite well together. McNabb and Whitecloud, really solid defensive pairing. Arguably one of the, I would say, the most underrated defensive pairing in the National Hockey League. And I think right now with the way the Golden Knights are playing and hopefully a long playoff run, we're going to hear a lot more about Whitecloud and McNabb throughout this postseason. This is a tough Vegas Golden Knights team. This is the team that kind of started the front of, especially in the Western Conference, but now we're seeing it in the East as well. When the Western Conference was dominating for probably about 5 or 6 years in the late 2010s, early 2020s, kind of what created Tampa Bay's run of the format, right? You have these big defensemen that can really skate well. That is a combination that is not easy to find. You have a lot of guys that are big. You have a lot of guys that can skate well. You don't tend to find those in the same category. If you can, you find that perfect blend of guys like McNabb and Whitecloud and Pietrangelo and so on and so forth on this blue line. That's where you have success. And that's where the Golden Knights' bread and butter has been, is that defense, complemented by how solid of additions they've added up front, like Eichel and Stone. You go down the list. All the solid players on this Golden Knights team. Tomas Hertl has had a pretty solid season. He has 61 points this year. Obviously, that's nothing to sniff at. Barbashev, solid season. Dorofeyev leads the team in goals. He had 34 goals this season. So the younger player on this Golden Knights team, 24 years old, really solid campaign for him. The power play, penalty kill. The penalty kill is a little below average, but they kind of make up for it for the power play. It's almost 30%, which is top 5 in the league by far. So that's definitely going in their favor. The record over the last couple weeks, that is my one concern, I would say, for Vegas, is because they know where their positioning has been for a while and they haven't been really competing for anything other than the President's Trophy. I wonder if they will be a little bit lackadaisical going into the postseason. So we'll kind of see how things work out in that regard. But it is going to be kind of interesting just where things will go for Vegas. I think they'll be okay. They'll be fired up back at T-Mobile Arena. They missed the playoffs last year, so that was a big deal. They're going to be excited to have playoff hockey back in Vegas, but that is one thing I would say is a negative for them. Meanwhile, for Minnesota, I kind of hate to say this, but from now till really since the February break, like, I hate to say they backed their way into the playoffs, but they kind of have. The Minnesota Wild have not had that solid of a season. And I hate to say that because I don't like to take away credit from teams. They deserve to be in the playoffs. They've done enough to earn that ticket. But they haven't gone on any like crazy winning streaks or anything to really make you believe like this is a team that's a legit contender. They're constantly winning games. They're finding ways to win. It just hasn't really felt that way. They kind of, especially toward the end of the season, kind of feels like they just backed their way in, which you never really want to hear that for a team that's playing the top seed in the Pacific, but that's kind of where we're at right now. So looking at the Wild, let's be a little bit more optimistic. The leading point producer, 73 points this season from Matthew Boldy, a really solid campaign for him. Kirill Kaprizov, you might be a little concerned because he only has 56 points this season. He only played half this season. So with a full season in hand, he would have had over 100 points this year. He was on pace to have a really solid season. Obviously, injuries kind of set that back a little bit, but that's okay. He's in the lineup. He'll be in game one at faceoff, at puck drop, hopefully, against the Golden Knights. So I don't think there's any concern about Kirill Kaprizov, but that is something to consider. Marco Rossi has really turned things around this season. He's been one of the real bright spots. Obviously, we expect Boldy to do things, but Rossi coming together, a 60-point campaign. He's gone through a lot in his young NHL career with injuries, with kind of just maybe lack of developing. Being called the bust word last year. Wasn't that long ago that Marco Rossi was considered a bust, and now he's putting up 60-point seasons. Things have gone well for him in the best of ways, and they really need, at a very important time in this team's kind of development. Brock Faber as well. He's going to be a solid piece on the back end. They need him to be playing well. Jacob Middleton, I think, is a very underrated player on this team. He's going to be that guy when Vegas's big defensemen come out, start maybe bullying some of the younger guys like Rossi and Boldy and Kaprizov. That's what you got that guy for, right? He's going to come in and kind of hold down the fort. Same thing for Zach Bogosian. Middleton, those are nice, big, shutdown defensemen. So we're going to see those guys playing an important role for the Minnesota Wild this season in the playoffs. No real injuries. Troy Grosnick is the kind of the lone injury for the Minnesota Wild. No real concerns there. So these are going to be two teams that are basically fully healthy for the playoffs, which is great. It's phenomenal. And they're coming into the playoffs healthy. It's not like they're, they have guys that they're sitting for the last 5 games or whatever. Like, I think Minnesota's big advantage they have here is they have been playing playoff hockey for the last month and a half. For Vegas, they've kind of known they're making the playoffs since the beginning of this year, since January. They not technically made the playoffs, but they knew they were going to be getting in. Minnesota has been playing like they are in playoff mode, right? We saw it the other night against the Anaheim Ducks in overtime, right? They throw in Fleury, they find a way to get a win. Not the prettiest goal, but you win games. That's what you got to do. So they've been able to do that. And I think when we look at some of the stats with this team, they're not all that impressive. They don't score a ton of goals. They're toward the bottom half of the league in that category. They struggle to score. Their goals against is right at the cusp at 16th in the league, so that's right at average. But I think that with the fact if they could jump on Vegas early, steal one of those games in Vegas, steal one of the games in Minnesota, you have a 2-2 series heading back to Vegas in Game 5. You never know what could happen. Who knows? Maybe we're at Game 5 or 6. Minnesota's leading this series. You just never know. But I think it's going to take a lot for them to do that. I think the Golden Knights are well rested. They've got experience. They're hungry. They missed the playoffs last year. It was an embarrassment for that franchise. They're ready to go. And it is going to be nice to see the storyline of Marc-Andre Fleury. Not that he's necessarily playing, but if this is the last series he plays in the National Hockey League, at least it'll be against a team that he's played with before in the Vegas Golden Knights. And maybe not the team he wants to see win if they do, but at least there is that connection there. With that said, I do think the Golden Knights win this series in 6 games. I think the Golden Knights are going to they're going to take care of business here. I think, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if Minnesota won Game 1, right? Vegas wins 2 or 3. Minnesota in desperation wins 4. Now we're 2-2. Vegas wins Game 5 at home ice advantage. And then I think just at that point, I think they're going to say, listen, let's not send this back to a Game 7. Let's win this in 6. They ultimately win it in Minnesota, and I think they will win this series in Minnesota at Xcel Energy Center before the name changes this summer. We'll talk about that over the summer, but I think the Vegas Golden Knights will win this series in 6 games. So that's going to do it for today's video. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Who do you guys think is going to win this series between the Golden Knights and the Minnesota Wild? It's going to be a great series. I'm excited to see this one. Like I said, never seen this series before, so this will be a first for all of us. It should be exciting. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you again next time.